I didn't know what a twin flame was. I had never heard of a twin flame. Was too busy to be online very much. And after I realized, wow, I'm in this huge amount of emotional pain, I started doing research online. And I came across this concept of twin flames. Okay, there's one more part of the story that I'm going to tell before getting into the twin flame thing. So after I delete the messages, I try my best to go on with my life. And I felt like I just kept getting pulled back in, and I have to admit, I was still like extremely curious to meet up with Mr. Catalyst. And truth be told, even to this day, I mean, fortunately, I don't have that same driving like desire or need, you know. I'm still a little curious, but curiosity also killed the cat. So I unfortunately, I'm, you know, outside of that really intense energy bubble that I was in for so long. It must have been like a couple of weeks later. It was right before I started my administrative job. I did wind up messaging him, and I just said, remember at that time, like I hadn't told him that the reason why I deleted the messages was that I knew he was sleeping with someone. I didn't tell him about any of the metaphysical things, but they were heavily present in my life, but not in his. I did message him, and he wound up calling me one day after work, and this was around 11:30 in the morning. And I'm mentioning this because it's indicative of these situations. And I saw his name on my phone, right? I really got this like nervous energy. Nervous, like and I felt like it was actually like a good thing, because it was almost like when you're dating people in high school and you get like all excited. Like I hadn't had that excitement in years. And so despite everything that I'm telling you, like there was something in me that still like really wanted to see him and be in contact with him and talk to him. And that's hard to admit, okay? So I remember the phone ringing. This is important. And I just felt this darkness over me. I didn't see it per se. I was just in almost like there was this dark cape. It was just this energy of darkness. And it wasn't like heavy, 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 but it was just like, oh. And despite the fact that I felt not good and sad, I wanted more, you know. I like wanted it to work out. And like I remember I answered that phone call and I was so nervous, like I didn't know what to say. I'm not usually like that. And we kind of stumbled through this strange conversation. And you know, one of the things I remember him telling me is like, oh, well, it's great that you're able to get a job so quick as an occupational therapist. And I was just kind of like, yeah. I mean, now I look at that, I'm like, honey, I busted my butt to get the job that I was about to start. And it's not like, you know, a little side, it's not like I'm big into the whole boss babe thing. I've watched so many videos about like the boss babe woman or whatever, but could you imagine, like, what if I had moved out to where this guy was living? It was just like, oh, okay. I mean, talk about the need to look out for yourself and support yourself. I really wish it wasn't like that here, but it's like that here, right? And this is one story where, you know, people can lead you on and they don't have any, I don't know if they believe it as they're leading you on, or they, you know, they have good intentions. I don't know the case, what the case is in a lot of instances. But when it comes down to it, honey, whether you're a man or a woman, you really need to make sure that you support yourself. okay? Because what if I had thought, what if I had believed everything that this guy had told me? And, you know, this was someone, like I said, we had kind of a common upbringing. We went to the same high school. I'm not saying that justifies me believing or hoping that what this guy was saying is true, but these situations happen a lot. And if there's one thing I could say right now is, this is so sad, but when people tell me stuff, like tell me they're going to do things, I just wait and see. You know, I just can't believe words anymore. You know, it's really sad. It's sad that our verbal contracts have been broken. Our words should mean something and they don't. Anyway, so we spoke on the phone, and once again, one of the reasons why I'm mentioning this is speaking on the phone, I would say, is it's a more intimate experience than just messaging, right? So I didn't know this at the time, but once again, there's an energetic exchange coming in with that. Now, a lot of times we might not even notice these exchanges, right? Like if you're on the phone for work, or you know, you're talking to if you're talking to your friend, I mean, yeah, I think you can sense an energetic exchange there. I mean, there's always an exchange whether you realize it or not. I just happen to be very aware of it. And the exchange was, you know, after I hung up, I felt drained, but I also wanted more, okay? So another take-home message, if you're feeling like this dark energy and you feel drained but also want more, like it's addictive, and that can cover a whole host of situations from trauma bonds to spiritual attacks, we could go on and on, okay? Dark energy, feeling drained, want more, that's vampiric energy, okay? That is a true energy vampire. You don't realize that you're being drained. And one of the reasons is we're constantly being drained in different ways here on Earth. So after that phone call, things still weren't right. The metaphysical aspects continue to ramp up, and in subsequent videos I'll continue to give examples of that. I still felt extremely connected to this person. I don't know how many videos we're on now. I mean, by the time you watch this, it's probably 13, 14, 15th video, okay? And the reason why I mention that is I started looking for answers. And in the beginning, like I told you, I didn't know what a twin flame was. I had never heard of a twin flame. I was too busy to be online very much. And after I realized, wow, I'm in this huge amount of emotional pain, I started doing research online. And I came across this concept of twin flames. Now, it's almost very hard for me to say those words today, knowing what I know now. But I'm taking myself back to 2019 when I first came across this concept. And I remember watching this video of this woman, and she said, yes, it feels horrible when you can feel your twin sleeping with someone else. And I was like, oh my God, that's it. Like someone understands like what I'm going through. And I said to myself, like, things just clicked. I was like, this must be what it is, because I have this extremely unusual connection to this person, and all these metaphysical things are ramping up. And if I'm honest with myself, even though I felt horrible, it was the first time that I had experienced these metaphysical things on such an intense level. And I felt like, God, I have just been living in a spiritual desert all these years. And I wasn't wrong about that, right? I mean, I had been searching for spiritual information for a long time. So the fact that I was continuing to experiencing these things just really kept me hooked. And the other thing I'll mention is that I was overwhelmingly physically attracted to this person, even though I hadn't seen him since high school. It was the most bizarre thing to me. And those were the things that kept me hooked. The overwhelming physical attraction, the metaphysical experiences, the emotional connection, and the very hardcore synchronicities, because I had always thought that synchronicities were a good thing, and they, absolutely were a good omen of things to come. And so, I had these 4 things on one side, and this person's really not so great, can I say bad behavior on the other side. And I'm like, all right, bad behavior, but this is really pulling at me. I need an explanation for this. And when I found the twin flame ideology online, I said to myself, this makes sense, right? They just described everything that I had gone through, and the fact that this guy had faded out. In my opinion, he faded out. He became the runner in twin flame ideology, and I guess I was the chaser, although I hate to admit that, and I tried really, really hard, not to chase. I will say, when I came across this ideology, and I'll get into this in subsequent videos, there were things that I disagreed with. I mean, fortunately, I had been raised Roman Catholic, and I began breaking my Roman Catholic programming very early on, which was difficult for me. I must have only been 11 or 12, and this was at a time where you just couldn't go online and figure things out, which is a blessing and a curse, right? Because the algorithm is going to feed you more of what you seek. So that's not necessarily a good thing either. So it's not like you do unbiased research online. You have to keep in mind, what the algorithm is feeding you. Anyway, that's an aside. So I was breaking my programming pretty early, 11, 12, 13, 14. I had some questions about the Roman Catholic Church, very serious questions. And anyone that's watching this that's part of the Roman Catholic religion, I would say if that works for you, it works for you. I'm not here to preach otherwise, right? I'm just discussing for myself that I had some serious questions about the Roman Catholic religion. And I didn't realize that at the time, but I was like, you know what? There's some things I disagree about this twin flame explanation. But still, overall, it made sense to me, because they discussed the metaphysical experiences that other people weren't discussing, and how you can be so emotionally connected to the person, and the telepathy. The telepathy for me was off the charts, and all this information was coming to me, and it was pretty accurate. When this information came to me, it really kept me hooked in ways that I shouldn't have been hooked. So finally, after 4 months or so, I had an explanation of what was going on. This was in my mind, a twin flame experience. And when I said those words back in 2019, it must have been November when I came across the twin flame concepts, it just sounded like such a pure, beautiful explanation. And what's interesting, even though there was a lot of very dark energy running through this, I still see this. It's so funny. There are these, they're probably chords, but I would also describe them as threads of truth. But the important thing to look at is the preponderance of evidence. That is something that will always stay with me, the preponderance of evidence. So, once again, what outweighs what? So we have the metaphysical, we have the emotional connection, we have the synchronicities, and it's so funny how sometimes I forget this, which is actually kind of nice. It makes me realize how far outside of the programming I am now, but the overwhelming physical attraction sealed the deal for me, because I'm not even physically attracted to men usually. So in this case, the physical attraction for me was off the charts, right? So we have those 4 things against this guy's behavior, right? So for me, I was like, I think there has to be something here, right? And I think a lot of women go through this. Now, some men do too, but in my experience, it's mostly women. And I want to reiterate that before I came across this concept in November of 2019, no idea. So I didn't go looking for my twin flame, none of that. I was just looking for an explanation of this huge amount of pain that I was in, and I just couldn't. There were a few people I discussed it with, but I never discussed it in this level of depth.